Have you ever seen a person's deeply held prejudices shatter right before your eyes? Broadcast lived to countless homes across the country. That's precisely what Elijah Grant managed to do to one of the nation's most notoriously biased television personalities. In just over 10 minutes, what unfolded would go down as one of the most viewed and talked about interview moments ever aired. If you're someone who enjoys peeling back the layers of music history to find those profound, life-altering encounters that shaped icons, then stick around. Share this if it moves you, and consider following for more glimpses into the hidden chapters that built the legends we celebrate today. It was the evening of November 15th, 1978, inside the bustling CBS studios in New York City, around 8:45 in the evening on the East Coast. The program, Evening Spotlight on America, was going out live to an estimated 23 million households nationwide. Elijah Grant had wrapped up a stirring rendition of his hit Unity, Forever moments earlier, and the host, Harold Whittaker, was gearing up for what he assumed would be a straightforward segment. But Harold Whittaker was no ordinary presenter. At 52, he'd risen from the rough and tumble world of radio provocation, crafting a reputation on outrage, sharp jabs, and a thinly veiled disdain for anyone who didn't fit his narrow view of the world. The network had brought him on board precisely for that edge. It drew eyes and boosted ad revenue. Whittaker had made his feelings known backstage. He wasn't thrilled about having this island singer with his laid-back vibe on the show. Yet Elijah Grant's latest record, Serenity, was surging up the charts, and the higher ups insisted. Whittaker would have to grin and bear it, but kindness wasn't part of the deal. "Good evening, folks," Whittaker announced as Elijah settled into the chair opposite him. "We've got Elijah Grant here tonight, the self-proclaimed Prince of Island Rhythms. So, Elijah, what's it like churning out tunes that seem to promote idleness and substance indulgence?" The opener was meant to sting, to throw the guest off balance. Elijah had navigated tricky interviewers plenty of times before, and he stayed cool, his voice warm and steady. "My songs are rooted in affection, my friend. They're about drawing folks closer, bridging divides rather than building walls." Whittaker let out a forced chuckle. "Drawing folks closer. Your lyrics are packed with nods to herbs and pushing back against the system. Isn't that just leading young people astray?" Elijah didn't miss a beat. "I create music about liberation. Liberation from chains in the mind. Liberation to choose your own path. Liberation to choose compassion over animosity. You could feel the room tightening, the crew shifting uncomfortably. This wasn't shaping up to be a light chat about melodies and tours. Liberation from chains in the mind. Whittaker repeated with a sneer. That's a bold claim from somebody whose forebears were in actual chains. Tell me, do you figure your folks would have fared better if they'd never left their homeland for these shores? A heavy silence dropped over the set like a curtain. Elijah's face stayed composed, but a flicker of resolve sparked in his gaze. The remark wasn't mere ignorance. It was calculated cruelty. My ancestors. Elijah responded softly. Weren't given a choice about crossing the ocean, my friend. They were ripped from their homes, chained, traded like property. Yet they endured. They built resilience. They discovered ways to express their spirit. Whittaker pressed harder, sensing he'd rattled his guest, though Elijah's poise was actually making the host appear petty. Discovered their spirit through tracks glorifying indulgence and unrest. Your community seems quick to point fingers outward instead of looking inward for accountability. Elijah sat motionless. What exactly do you mean by your community? The words lingered, charged and dangerous. Whittaker knew he'd ventured into risky waters, but pride wouldn't allow retreat, not live, not with millions watching. You know full well. He shot back, volume rising. You're kind. You're... And then he unleashed it, the ugliest slur imaginable, one that carried centuries of venom. The audience inhaled sharply in unison. Crew members froze. In the booth, staff scrambled over whether to yank the feed, but the broadcast continued. Elijah remained seated, unmoving, for a stretch that felt endless. When he spoke again, his tone was hushed, forcing the microphones to capture every nuance. Could you repeat that? What did you just name me? Whittaker's cheeks burned with fury and regret. He'd overstepped catastrophically on national air, and he knew it. Rather than retract, he dug in deeper. You heard clear enough. That's exactly what you are. All of you invading our land, peddling that wild beat, poisoning the minds of our youth. Elijah rose deliberately. For a heartbeat, the room braced for an exit or outburst. Guards inched nearer. But Elijah lowered himself back down, leaned in, and locked eyes with Whittaker. Share something about your dad with me. Elijah said quietly. The shift threw Whittaker completely. Excuse me? Your father. Tell me about him. What sort of man was he? Whittaker blustered. What's that got to do with any of this? Humor me. Elijah urged gently but firmly. Whittaker glanced around, flustered, irate, exposed. My old man. He was solid. Put in long hours. Served in the big war. Did he show you love? The probe cut deep, catching Whitaker off guard. His expression softened unexpectedly with buried hurt. Sure he did. In his way. Did he ever say it outright? Voice the words. Whitaker's defenses cracked further. He wasn't the type for mushy talk. He demonstrated it. In what ways? By providing, grinding every day, doing what a man does. Elijah inclined his head thoughtfully. And what lessons did he pass on about folks who don't look like you? The studio fell utterly still. Millions at home witnessed a gentle unraveling, unfolding in real time. Whitaker squirmed. He instilled pride in our heritage. Did he instill dislike? Whitaker hesitated. No. Well, he cautioned us. Cautioned about what? About certain types who might take advantage. Threaten what we'd earned. Do I strike you as someone aiming to harm you, Harold? Whitaker met Elijah's gaze, truly for the first time. This wasn't the scripted confrontation he'd planned. He was meant to dominate, diminish the guest. Instead, he felt transparent, vulnerable in a profoundly unsettling way. No, but you're not the same as... Same as who? As those he warned against. Elijah eased back a fraction. Your father carried fear, didn't he? Fear of loss. Fear of the unknown. Fear of shifts beyond his grasp. Whitaker's reply was faint. Yeah, I suppose. And that fear flowed down to you. I'm not scared. Whitaker insisted weakly, his tone betraying the lie. Fear drives folks to harsh actions, Harold. Fear prompts words laced with pain, words not truly from the heart. Elijah's delivery stayed tender yet resonant, echoing through the space. When you hurled that term at me earlier, was it fear speaking, or the real you? Whitaker's mouth opened, then shut. He finally beheld Elijah, not the hairstyle, not the complexion, not the caricature in his head, but the person, the soul across from him. Something fractured within. I don't. Whitaker's voice broke. I don't know your dad. Did he ever share a table, a real conversation, with someone unlike him? No, Whitaker murmured. He stuck to familiar circles. And you followed suit. It wasn't accusatory. It was a mirror held up to years of ingrained bias. Yeah? Whitaker conceded, barely audible. Elijah reached inside his coat and produced a small snapshot, passing it over. This here's my boy, Tommy. He's 10. Loves soccer, adventure books. Sweet treats. Just like any kid. Whitaker examined the image, a grinning child, with his dad's warm eyes. What do you see there? Long pause as camera zoomed in on Whitaker's turmoil. I see. A youngster. An innocent youngster. Exactly. No danger. No cause for alarm. No. Just a child. Elijah nodded. But as he matures, what will folks like the old you perceive? The impact landed heavily. Whittaker grasped the implication. This joyful boy would encounter the very venom Elijah endured daily. They'd see. He trailed off, unable. They'd see what you saw in me moments ago. Tears streamed down Whittaker's face now, full-bodied sobs shaking him on live TV. A bigoted presenter undergoing profound emotional reckoning, guided by an island artist. "Forgive me." Whittaker choked out. "Please forgive me. I can't explain why You were raised that way," Elijah soothed. "Fear handed down like an old keepsake. But it doesn't have to own you, Harold. You can select a new path." Whittaker gazed up through blurred vision. "How do I undo a lifetime of this?" Elijah's smile emerged, genuine and radiant. The first since sitting down. Step by step, heart to heart, decision by decision. Elijah rose and offered his hand. "I'm Elijah Grant. A dad, a creator of songs, a fellow traveler on this earth. Who are you?" Whittaker stared at the hand. Accepting it meant owning his flaws, his bigotry, his blindness, his terror. It signaled the end of the provocative persona and the start of something authentic. He clasped it firmly. "I'm Harold. Harold Whittaker. And I've been mistaken on so much." Thunderous applause erupted from the crowd. Not scripted claps, but raw, heartfelt ovation for true change witnessed. Elijah resumed his seat. "Care to begin anew, Harold?" Whittaker dabbed his eyes and agreed. "Absolutely. I'd like that." The closing minutes turned legendary. Whittaker inquired earnestly about Elijah's early years, his inspirations, his dreams for his kids. He absorbed Elijah's tales of hardship in his homeland, how melodies could mend fractures and forge connections. Elijah, in turn, probed Whittaker's anxieties, his roots, the inherited wounds from generation to generation. By the fine ale, two strangers shared a budding respect. When Elijah reprised Unity, forever to end the broadcast, Harold Whittaker rose and cheered with sincere enthusiasm. The response was swift and overwhelming. The network fielded tens of thousands of calls overnight, some demanding Whittaker's dismissal for his bigotry, others moved by the raw humanity displayed. A real time evolution, a bridge built on air. Whittaker lost his position the following morning. Yet something remarkable followed. Elijah reached out personally. "Heard about the job," Elijah said. "My condolences." "Don't be," Whittaker replied. Change was overdue. What lies ahead? Silence, then resolve. I want to understand, truly understand. Different lives, different sounds, worlds I ignored. Months passed, and Whittaker volunteered at an urban youth hub in a vibrant neighborhood, sharing broadcasting knowledge with local teens. His broadcast experience became a tool for uplift. And for once, purpose filled his days. Elijah surprised him with a visit. He found Whitaker guiding youngsters in crafting a program on community issues. "You seem transformed," Elijah noted. "I am," Whitaker said. "Unburdened, like shedding invisible chains. Fear weighs heavy," Elijah replied. "Compassion lifts." They conversed deeply about rhythms, renewal, the hope of atonement. As Elijah departed, he gifted a simple acoustic guitar. "Sounds heal. Time you made some." Whitaker never went pro with music, but he mastered chords. He strummed at local gatherings, benefits, circles discussing equity, empathy, possibility. When Elijah passed in 1981, Whitaker joined global mourners. At a New York tribute, he addressed the assembly. "I encountered Elijah Grant on television," he shared. "He's a man steeped in resentment and dread. But he perceived potential in me I couldn't see. Potential for evolution, understanding, forgiveness. In mere minutes live on air, he rescued my spirit." He surveyed the varied faces honoring Elijah. "Elijah showed me we're bound by threads deeper than appearance, origin or creed, bound by our shared essence. Once you grasp that bond, truly feel it, retreating to division becomes impossible. Dread loses its grip." To deepen this story, let's explore Whitaker's background more. To understand how that night cracked open a lifetime of barriers. Picture Harold as a boy in a working-class Midwest town during the post-war boom. His father, a factory man and veteran, came home hardened by battle and economic scraps. Evenings at the dinner table were filled with tales of us versus them. Warnings about outsiders who might disrupt the fragile stability they'd clawed for. "Stick with your own," his dad would say, voice gruff but protective. Harold absorbed it all, never questioning, as kids often don't. As a young radio DJ in the 50s and 60s, Whitaker honed his edge on controversy, calling out troublemakers. In civil rights marches drew listeners who felt the world changing too fast. It got him noticed, promoted, but privately, doubts nagged. Late nights alone, wondering if the anger was truly his or just echoed. Elijah's childhood offered stark contrast. Growing up in modest circumstances on a Caribbean island, Elijah learned early about resilience amid scarcity. His mother instilled faith and harmony. Street sounds, drums, voices blending, sparked his love for music as unifier. As a teen, he faced prejudice for his mixed heritage, called names that stung, yet he channeled pain into songs of uplift. "Hurt doesn't have to harden you," his grandma told him. "It can soften, open doors." One added scene before the show. Backstage tension. Whittaker paces, muttering to producers about keeping it real. Elijah, in a quiet corner, strums softly, humming to center himself. A young stagehand, nervous, approaches Elijah for an autograph. "Your music got me through tough times," the kid says. Elijah smiles, signs, adds, "Keep spreading good vibes." Yeah. That small exchange reminds Elijah why he endures hostility to touch lives. During the interview build-up, expand the hostility. Whittaker jabs at Elijah's style. All that island herb talk, setting a bad example for kids. Elijah counters with stories. I sing of natural gifts. Peace from within. Ever try listening without judging? Whittaker scoffs, but seeds of curiosity plant. As the slur drops, describe the fallout in detail. The gasp rippling through seats. A mother at home covering her child's ears. Viewers nationwide stunned. Post. Slur. Elijah's calm dismantling. He shares a personal anecdote. I once met a man who hated my kind sight unseen. Years later, after sharing a meal, he apologized. Said fear blinded him. We became friends. Whittaker listens, defenses lowering. When showing the photo, linger. Whittaker traces the boy's smile, memories of his own son flashing. Distant relationship strained by Whittaker's harshness. The breakdown. Whittaker recalls specific moments. His father's rare hugs. Unspoken love twisted into cautionary tales. He never said, I love you, but warned me about them. Tears flow as he voices regrets. Handshake. Symbolic. Cameras close on intertwined hands, diverse tones uniting. Remaining segment, genuine exchange. Whittaker asks about Elijah's family life. Elijah describes fatherhood joys, fears for his kids in a divided world. Whittaker opens about his estranged daughter, how his views pushed her away. Maybe I can reach out. He muses. Elijah performs again, Whittaker joining faint harmony from seat, awkward but earnest. Aftermath expansion, flood of letters, hate mail, but more support. One from a veteran. Your dad sounded like mine. Thank you for showing another way. Whittaker's firing. Network statement cites inappropriate conduct, but public petitions for second chance emerge. Inspired by transformation. Elijah's call. They talk hours. Elijah encourages. Use your voice for building now. Whittaker's new path. At the center, he mentors a shy teen resembling young Elijah, talented but doubted. Helps produce first broadcast on overcoming bias. Teen thrives, credits Whittaker. Elijah's visit. They play guitar together, simple tunes. Laughter fills room. Elijah? See? Music crosses all. Long terms. Whittaker authors book on his journey, speaks at schools. Reconciles with family. Starts foundation promoting cross, cultural dialogue through arts. Another scene years later, Whitaker at a concert honoring Elijah. On stage, Sheris. One man, one night, changed everything. Proved hate isn't permanent. Daily life examples, ordinary people inspired, teacher addressing classroom bias, neighbor reaching out, parent teaching empathy. Historical parallels, like unlikely friendships during civil rights era, or reconciliations post-conflict. Emotional depth, Whitaker's inner shift, nights reflecting, old recordings cringing at past self. Elijah's perspective, post-show to Bandy. Everyone carries pain. Sometimes kindness unlocks it. Broader impact, clip becomes educational tool, sparking conversations on prejudice, forgiveness, in divided eras. Such moments remind connection possible, change real. Whitaker embodied what Elijah challenged: division, fear, judgment by surface. Through patience, truth. Humanity, Elijah revealed change's power even on live TV. That evening, Whitaker learned what many before had. Confronted with unwavering compassion, walls crumble. Elijah Grant's legacy endures not just in melodies, but in lives touched, hearts opened. If this tale of grace and renewal touches you, pass it on. Remind someone prejudice isn't destiny. Understanding is choice. Elijah knew that. On that November night in 1978, he proved it to a stunned nation. And one man who thought change impossible